Hi, Olof here. I'm not in Spain unfortunately, but I'm in sunny Gothenburg in Sweden actually. Today I'm going to do some pretty exciting stuff, and that is to go to Merida, Sweden, which is located here in Gothenburg, to test out the new Merida 2021 eONE-SIXTY. And one thing that is very exciting with this bike is that it's got the new Shimano EP8 motor on it. It was launched yesterday, and today I'm going to try it. Now this will only be a first impressions video. I only have a couple of hours to try it out, but if Merida hears my prayers, I will be able to borrow this bike for 2 whole days in about 2 weeks, where I'll take it to a bike park to do a full-on shakedown on this bike. Okay, so I got to borrow the Merida eONE-SIXTY with the new Shimano EP8 motor, and I've been riding it for about 5 or 10 minutes or so, but I can immediately tell that it's a bike that I like very much. It feels very agile for being a pretty heavy bike. I think it's around 23 kilos or so, but it's got a short chainstay, and everything else is bang on when it comes to geometry, I think. So I'll go to a pump track that's just behind this stadium back here and give it a go. So while I'm getting there, this bike is the 2021 Merida, but the frame is supposed to be the same frame as from last year's model, which is not a bad thing really. The new things on these bikes is of course the motor, the Shimano EP8 motor, and some of the components. Okay, I don't know if I found the pump track, but I found the trail at least, so I'll give it a go. Yeah, okay, I think I found it. It's right about here, and these kids are going to show me how this is done. Okay, so I had the chance to ride this bike a few laps around that pump track for at least 15 minutes or so. That was nice to have a first feel for how this bike performs. And I have no illusion that I'm a good mountain biker. I'm probably just average. So it's interesting for me to see if this is a bike that could give an average mountain biker some joy, and it definitely can. So this particular bike, it cost 120,000 Swedish kroner, and that's a lot of money, but it starts from 55,000. That's an aluminum version that starts from 55,000. This bike is the highest spec bike there is. It's a carbon bike, carbon wheels, and it's got all the bells and whistles that you can imagine. But this bike actually has the same frame as last year, so there are no big differences there. So the focus has been to integrate this motor together with Shimano, and I'm really surprised on how small this motor is. I've only seen the E8000 that it replaces, and that's a small motor too, but this is really small. You can hardly tell it's an e-mountain bike, can you? The motor now produces 85 Newton meters, and I don't think it's a coincidence that in June or July Bosch released a software update for the Bosch CX Performance motor that also now produces 85 Newton meters. I have tested that motor as well, and from what I can tell now, it feels very similar when it comes to power delivery and how much power there is available. Here are some specs for this top-end bike called eONE-SIXTY 10K. The brakes, both front and rear, are Shimano XTR 4-pot brakes, and the drivetrain is also from the Shimano XTR group set. The grippy Maxxis tires sit on DT Swiss carbon wheels and measure 29 inch and 2.5 inch wide in the front and 27.5 inch and 2.6 inch wide in the rear. The seat is mounted on an electric RockShox dropper post. There is a new set of buttons to control the different modes for the motor, and it looks really sleek. I don't mind the Bosch Purion variant, but this is definitely next level. I also really like the attention to details when it comes to the cable routing, where some of the cables are routed inside the handlebar. Lights also comes as standard, which draw power directly from the battery. The color is called Glossy Sparkling Blue, which is exactly what it is. Fox 28 Factory eMTB Plus with Kashima coating in the front, and Fox Factory Float X2 with the piggyback in the rear. Finally, a few words about the motor. There are 3 modes to choose from: Eco, Trail and Boost mode. All modes can be tweaked through a newly developed app for your smartphone. This motor gives plenty of power even with high cadence. I wouldn't be surprised if the usable torque range is wider than with its predecessor. Even though the motor is lighter, smaller and more powerful, I think the most important feature is the reduced friction or drag. Rumors say there's around 35% less drag with the EP8 motor. If that number refers to under or over the cutoff limit, I can't say, but I will try to find out. Some other reviewers complain about the rattling noise from the motor when coasting, and indeed there is sometimes a rattling noise on uneven surfaces. But that is nothing that I personally think is a problem. That noise is not very loud, it's just the bike itself that is very quiet. From this very short test ride, I think the EP8 motor is a very good motor, but it's not a revolution. It's an evolution, but a good step forward. Shimano can now finally compete with Bosch on equal terms. Yeah, so I'm going to do a full review of this bike later on in 2 weeks if Merida Sweden are willing to lend me this bike for 2 days. And that will be a full shakedown with all details, all specs, along with how I feel it is to ride this bike. And I will do some back-to-back testing as well, together with other e-bikes. So it will be really fun to see how this bike stands out next to these bikes. So hasta luego. Now I'll enjoy this bike ride home. See you in 2 weeks then.